It's the morning after. So you're having like a real visual representation of what you look like after the fact. How's she look, guys?
We're a little rough.
You look good for like no sleep, combining drugs, doing illegal, dangerous things. You're looking good.
I'm alive. I'm here. I'm present. It's pretty good. I'm a little hungry.
According to YouTube's guidelines shown here, videos which intend to educate are documentary by nature and do not glorify the use of drugs. Both abide by the community safety guidelines and are eligible for monetization. The following video does not glorify the use of drugs. Instead, it attempts to be non-biased while delivering vital life-saving information disguised as entertainment. We do not display graphic use. There are no scenes showcasing drug consumption, and any insinuation of use should be taken as satirical at best.
So to start this video off, I do not advise anyone combines anything. I am simply trying to come from a non-biased angle, as non-biased as I could personally be. And I'm very curious what types of experiences Lauren has had and why she has not favored this combo. But I want to make it crystal clear that neither of us are advising anybody does anything. This is simply for the sake of education, and I want to help you guys learn how to be more safe and, uncover some of the dangers attached with some of these very common drug combinations that people do administer, largely because there are certain combos that can kill you. And there are very common combos that do kill people all the time. If you watch my recent Q&A, I talked about that. So on that same page, let's dive in and hopefully uncover some of the intricacies of the ketamine acid mix. And who better to ask than the girl who literally last night had an acid and ketamine combo. It's the morning after. So you're having like a real visual representation of what you look like after the fact. How's she look, guys?
We're a little rough.
Anyway, let's jump right into this video. So what do you think the combination is like, and why would somebody want that combo?
What do I think? Okay, well, I think that the ketamine with the acid, it takes those doors that are being opened, and it just it's like there's also another door that we can open as well. I feel like it expands the psychological experience of the acid trip a lot. Like for me, we've talked about this. I'm not a very visual person, so it doesn't really intensify visuals or anything for me, but it definitely, I feel that like consciousness expanding more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find any dangers associated with it?
I haven't thankfully run into any issues with it. Like I think that you could probably potentially like stir up a little bit of paranoia or anxiety, but that happens when you're on acid.
It's to be
anyways,
expected,
right?
Yeah,
So,
it might, I guess, heighten that.
It could heighten anything. It's going to intensify anything even more so.
So, like, how do you feel after doing the combo last night?
I feel good in comparison to just acid afterglow and an afterglow with acid and ketamine. Like, I don't find much of a difference.
Right. And so you did what? A couple lines?
Yeah, I think
while
I did.
You were on it?
I think I did 3 altogether last night.
Right, but like you only did 2 directly during the experience.
No, I did 1 after we took acid. I did the 2 before we took the acid.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. So you did 1 during the experience.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Like, it's different experience doing the ketamine first, like on the tail end having the acid. Like it's obviously there's metabolites and there's drug interactions that are going on. Even if you physically don't really feel much, it is going to alter the effects of any drug you take. Like if you're already on something, sometimes it pushes it into dangerous territory depending on the compound, but that's different than like already being in a trip and then entering the ketamine headspace. Like that's a true combination of the two. And what would you say it changed with the acid trip? Like upon feeling effects, like what happened?
It definitely, so I didn't get, it's hard to explain. It didn't necessarily, because I felt like you were a little bit higher on the acid than I was. So that's why I did some of the ketamine to kind of like bring it into more where you were, like visually, because you were having a very visual experience.
No, not very. I just said it was very vibrant colors bleeding. It wasn't like too much morphing.
Yeah.
But it was more visual than you suggested you had. But didn't we talk about like just because I see something more visually, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going deeper?
Yes, yeah, because we can filter the experience in our person differently. So I was feeling it more, maybe emotionally.
I don't know. Were you?
I don't know.
I can't say.
It's hard to say. wow, wouldn't that be the day when we can like see what people are seeing on their trips?
That would be cool.
Also
Like a trip
terrifying.
camera. Like you could actually like see through their eyes. That's the next level of virtual reality. Trip cameras. Guys, come take acid with me. It'll be an interactive experience.
I mean, they're getting
Put on the goggles and you can be me. Being John Malkovich 2.0.
Being John Malkovich.
Malkovich, Malkovich.
If you haven't seen that movie, it's worth a watch.
No one should ever experience that. I think that's what he says afterwards. He's like, I have seen some shit that no one should ever see. It's like, yeah, Malkovich. Malkovich.
Yes.
What happens when you go into yourself? You become a Pokemon. It's like,
just keep saying your name.
Pikachu. It's like every Pokemon is actually,
Lauren.
they're inside a tunnel, inside their heads, and the Pokemon are actually like in a constant trip, and they're like, Pikachu. But we just see them as like saying Pikachu. Yeah.
What about Jigglypuff? She sings.
Maybe she's trying to like reverse psychology, snap herself out of the trip. She's trying to sing to fall asleep to wake up.
So, you know, the biggest trip of that whole show is that Meowth can talk.
So reeling it back into the ketamine. Speaking of cats, let's get back here. You took the dose to match my level, even though that's kind of like
So what I thought.
that. I don't think it'll. That suggests that the ketamine is going to heighten the LSD effects. Is that what happens? Does
Definitely.
it make you trip harder?
I
But does
would-
it like really pull out the LSD effects, or does it cause new effects?
I think it's a little bit of both. It definitely brings out the acid effects for sure. But it also adds like a ketamine weirdness, which is like, I think that ketamine is more interesting to me when I'm already on psychedelics, like when I'm already on acid, because it's like, say if my acid experience is like kind of hit the plateau, like if I want to like get a little bit higher, like with it, you can take a bit of ketamine, and it's not like I'm taking another hit of acid, right? Like it's not gonna be that intense.
Okay.
It's gonna just be like we're just gonna like take it closer to the peak for
Does
like
it cause
30 minutes.
euphoric effects? Like
Yes.
is there a pleasure?
I think that there is more euphoria when you take ketamine on acid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
for sure.
like physical, like you just like, you know, when you sit there and you're
You're-
like writhing in pleasure and you're like, oh,
You're more blissed out for sure.
okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. I think so.
Is that the driving factor of taking it? You're like, you know, this feels good, but I could be feeling better. Like,
yes.
Okay, so see, I'm trying to also figure out why people get addicted, and when people get addicted to it, they merge it with everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it largely stems from hedonism. Then, like they're just
Definitely.
it puts you in this.
Oh, yeah.
Like the chasing the dragon for
Mm-hmm.
opioid addicts is what they would call it. You're constantly looking for more pleasure. So I guess it's common to do line after line of ketamine in a night, especially if you're already
Yeah.
in the midst of like a cocktail of things.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
And then does that like spur you into more risky behavior? So you go from like getting the ketamine, and then like do you know like when you get out drunk, your defenses are down, your inhibitions are so low where it's like you can easily suggest new things that if you were sober you wouldn't do. Like, does it have that effect? Say acid and ketamine, and then you're more likely to do some balloons and then smoke some weed. Like, does it have this compounding effect where you just like want to go deeper and deeper and deeper?
I think it depends on what substances you use. I think it depends on what substances you're using anyways. Like if you're a regular substance user.
Polyaddict or poly user. So if you normally would take balloons during an acid trip, you're going to take some more balloons?
Probably. I mean, I think it depends, because like I've had times where I've taken ketamine and then on a trip, and then it's like, and then I'm just like, nah, I didn't really want that. And then I let it fade, and then I just go back to my acid trip. So it's like, I definitely think it depends on the individual and like what you're personally like seeking to experience. Because like,
I see. So it's not super fiendish, because there's some drugs where it's like it has this fiendish quality where you take it and then you have to actually like exert some real self-control to stop yourself from adding things.
It definitely has fiendish qualities.
Okay.
It has huge fiendish qualities, but I think that it's the more so than like, obviously, like if you're comparing like addictive factors between like ketamine and acid, obviously acid isn't really addictive, and ketamine, I think because of the fact that the high is so short-lived, it, like you said, like people can want to chase that if you're, you know.
See, that's what I was confused about, because after the experience, again, first, it's hard to get a real solid footing on whether something was good or not from a first experience, because there's, you know, there's too many unknowns, and there's also just too much anxiety going into it. You have much more of a chance of really feeling something's full effects when you're super calm and you're kind of like, you know, just totally open to whatever happens, which I was, but you can't negate the anxiety, you know, of trying a new substance. And that's why people get they fall so much in love with MDMA, because MDMA, even though they're like nervous to try it, MDMA washes their nerves away and it literally melts them. And you melt into a pool of bliss. And you're like, how could I ever imagine being nervous? That's crazy.
And then when it starts to wear off,
You're like, I need more.
I need that again.
But things like ketamine aren't going to melt you into a pool of bliss. Like not in the same context.
Not in the same way, no.
So when I'm asking these questions, because during my experience, I was kind of like, why do people, again, I'm not saying I can judge it off once, and I'm not judging it off once, but my initial reaction was kind of like, why do people like this so much? It just feels weird. And I understand different brain chemistry. Every drug affects every person in a different way. But I wanted to understand. Part of taking it was I wanted to know what was fiendish about it.
I'm very interested to see you try the R, because tends to be like, most people tend to have a preference between the two.
Huh.
You might end up preferring the R experience.
I think it lacked like a euphoric punch. Like there wasn't anything in it that made me go, this is pleasurable. Like again, pleasure can be found in different ways. Yeah. Like it's not like having pleasure in LSD is necessarily the same as even having pleasure in mushrooms. Like it's similar, but when you take these substances, they're good because they open your mind to experiencing new things. And the only way not the only way, a great way to grow as a person and to adopt new habits and patterns is to do new things. Like you can't do a new pattern using the same thought processes that got you in the old patterns. Like you need to break away from it. And that actually means literally doing something new to break the pattern. So substance use can be very therapeutic from that regard, because it actually breaks your normal pattern, which can be as simple as, I've never taken this drug and this is so far out of what my normal routine is in a day. It's like an instant pattern break. And then it opens up the doors to, you can actually like choose, I'm going to enjoy this. You have to sometimes search and seek out aspects of the experience to like sometimes it's not so obvious. It's not like, oh my God, I just feel so fucking amazing. It's not like an MDMA thing. Like you got to find things to enjoy, and it's not always apparent in the beginning.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean there isn't value. Like, you know, this is the thing when it comes to tripping, substance use. This has always been my philosophy, is that there are no bad trips. There's only difficult lessons to learn.
Yeah, that's a brilliant philosophy. I'm fully on board with that.
Like
in the moment, it feels terrible.
But afterwards, you're like, I survived, and what can we learn from this? If you want to actually,
some people don't want to grow though. That's the thing. Some people actually want to be in their midst. Like that is what they may not even consciously know it, but they want to be in that state.
Yeah, it's true. Depression can be addictive.
A lot of people want to be in that state. They want to be in their pain, and I've been there. I currently have a lot of patterns that like I'm constantly like, I need to change these negative patterns and adopt new ones, replace them with healthy ones. But it's like when you're doing something negative or something that you know is unhealthy, but you can't seem to stop, what it ultimately means is it's filling a void that you can't fill yourself, or that you're not willing to fill yourself. Laziness, usually it's not laziness. Usually it's literally just childhood trauma. And we talked about this during our trip. And that compound or that pattern, it doesn't have to be a drug, is having an effect that, well, you might consciously think it's negative on an unconscious and like on, a real level, it is doing something that you on some way feel is beneficial. Otherwise you wouldn't do it. You don't do things that aren't benefiting you in some way. Like that's not how humans work. So I forget where I was going with this.
I think it's interesting too, like with oh man, I had a good thought there.
But yeah, I think we were
Good
talking
thing.
about the ketamine, and
Yeah.
I was saying how like I wanted to know what people like about it, and it really wasn't apparent to me like why it was enjoyable. So I'm trying to I was trying during the experience to look for things to like, but sometimes there's actually just compounds where I'm not saying ketamine is one of them, but this is true for a lot of people with weed. You want to like it, and sometimes there's like a lot of social pressure, like your friends like it, you watch movies and all the characters like it, and we all want to emulate our favorite movie people, and we want acceptance from our friends and all that jazz. But then it's like maybe the chemical really doesn't agree with your brain, and there's also the instance like you're trying to convince yourself to like it, but you really don't, and it's actually having negative effects. This happens a lot with people.
I've had this with ketamine. I've taken ketamine before and been like, you know what, this was not what I wanted at all. Right now, I'd much rather be sober, and I've actually been thinking about this a lot lately too, just in general, because up until like for the last like few weeks, I've been thinking about acid, and then I get in like I'm thinking about it, and then I think, okay, well, what is it that I'm trying to get out of acid that I'm maybe able to tap into without it? And I have been doing that, which has been interesting.
But then you had some acid though.
But then I
like,
had some
but then you
acid.
still you end up.
And then honestly, when I was on it, I was like, to be fair, I've been kind of feeling this, like I've been feeling these like heightened like emotions like in the last little while without it. And so like going back to that acid feeling was kind of like a reminder that I don't need it.
I don't know. That sounds like a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's kind of like you were telling yourself ahead of time that you didn't like, you were thinking about acid, but at the same time you didn't do it, and you're feeling good about not doing it because you're already accessing those states.
I wasn't necessarily
And
feeling
now you're
good
trying
about
to like
not doing
fulfill
it.
those thoughts by like, oh, I knew I was right. Like that. I don't know. That kind of sounds like confirmation bias. We all have confirmation bias.
I wasn't necessarily thinking ahead that it wasn't going to do anything.
Right.
I was more curious, like, am I able to like open my mind without it?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I get that. You don't want to rely on these things.
Yeah.
You want, like, I think it's important to be able to open your mind
Yeah,
without
yeah.
the drugs. Very important.
But then there's a reason that, to take them.
Yeah, if you need the healing, if you feel like there's a lesson there. I'm just calling you out on bullshit because that sounded like confirmation bias to me. Like you.
Oh, I'm full of
you
bullshit.
could have taken more. That's
I
the
don't
thing.
even
Like
know
it's
anymore.
all dose dependent.
Yeah.
I think honestly, if you had to take ketamine to match my level, and I wasn't really very, like I fell asleep.
Yeah.
If I was really tripping, do you think I'd be able to fall asleep 3.5, 4 hours in? No, I wasn't that like I was definitely feeling it. No way. I
guess
wasn't.
this is the thing
but
for
it wasn't
me.
an intense trip.
When people say they're like their visuals are like melty, and then I'm not, and I feel like, am I missing out?
I see. That's normal. Totally relatable. Yeah.
Am I missing out? Did I do
Well,
it
plus when you
wrong?
trip, you want to match the person because then you have a better trip when you match the person. Like you vibe off
Yes.
each other. You feel like you're
Yes.
on the same wavelength. Like
Yes.
the actual waves in the air. Like you're in the vibe.
It's much easier for me to feel that way when I'm with my partner, for sure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, it's not like there's like
It's-
a huge disconnect when we trip because,
Well,
but
you
like,
know each other.
yeah.
You actually like know, like when you say something and you mean something else secretly, he knows that.
Exactly.
You could say something and mean something else, and it's like, I don't know the fuck you're doing.
I
know you
love
that
those
well.
moments.
No
We
idea.
have some what the fuck moments.
Yeah, same with me. I can do something and she
great.
doesn't know me. So when you don't know the person, it causes a lot of miscommunication, which you can see in my LSD with Quentin video. The entire trip with Quentin was basically one big fucking communication.
Oh, that's stressful.
And then it actually escalated to the point where the trip got terrifying for me, I don't know about him, I can't speak for him, but for me, I had to take a gosh darn trip killer. And that was large, not entirely, there was some other factors at play, but that was largely because the miscommunications kept piling up and I was like overwhelmed by it. Like I felt like when you're in a trip, it's important to feel some form of connection. Yeah. And when you don't know the person, like when you don't know the person well, you don't spend a lot of time together, you don't really understand each other's mannerisms, there's a level of disconnect, which it can be challenging to work through if like your goal is to have
bonding experience.
Yeah, and to be on the same wavelength. You kind of almost just got to sit back and just accept that you're having different
experiences. Yeah, for sure. And just be like, okay, we're in this ride, but it's different carts.
Yeah, that's a good one. And maybe I'm going left sometimes and you're going right, and then we might join up for a bit, and then you go up and I'm going down. Like, yeah. Or we're at the same amusement park, but we're on slightly different roller coasters. It's still a roller coaster.
Which could be a really interesting experience to have those like oscillating like moods.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be good or bad.
No,
it's just different. But when you take these with a partner, someone who you emotionally have a bond with, they're a world of difference between the two.
As hopefully things are good with you and that person though, because I could get a little crazy if there's some emotional disconnect happening before the experience. For sure. You can definitely amplify emotional disconnection, I think, if you're already feeling that way. I mean, unless you have the intention, like if you're like with a partner and there's some emotional disconnect happening, like in the relationship leading up to the trip, if you like sit down and have the conscious intention to like have a bonding experience, and I think you're much more likely to have that experience. Setting intentions is important, especially being aware of the state you're in with communication is just so key.
It is, which makes tripping extra difficult when you're with other people, because I'm not the best at communicating. I can be pretty damn shit at communicating. And I think my partner would say that sometimes, and she would admit that she's guilty of this too, so not to just single and like bad talk Adam over here, but my communication can be very confrontational. And it's not even that I always mean to be that way.
You just ask a lot of questions.
I ask a lot of questions, and sometimes it can come across as if like in the questions I'm judging or I'm thinking like negatively, and then that can put the person who's answering the questions in a defensive state, because then they're like, you naturally, when somebody like challenges you, you naturally like, you put your back up and you want to contest it. Like you're putting the person on the spot, and they want to offer like evidence like, no, that's not true. And then when you're in these states and you're like all over the place suggestible, you could start believing that like the person asking you these questions is thinking all kinds of things, and you can make all these assumptions. And it's because my communication is like it's almost like mean sometimes, but I just need to learn how to communicate in a softer, more gentle way. Which is also evidence of some negative self-talk that I go through, because like how we communicate with others is largely a representation of how we communicate internally. So if I'm coming across mean, it means like inside I'm being pretty damn mean to little old Adam, but I've gotten much better at reeling that back.
You kind of just blew my mind with that one.
Oh.
That's actually really interesting to think about, like how I talk to myself reflects on how I talk to other people.
Yeah, I think so. Especially on psychedelics, when like the walls are down and you're like, you can be more your core authentic self, because it puts you in that vulnerable state.
I want to be nicer to myself than I am, for sure.
But see, that can also make it seem like you can be condescending to people, because maybe like you're actively trying to sound like you're nicer than you actually are.
Damn. Because I know I get that. Like people definitely say that I can be, like I come across condescending or judgmental when it's like I'm so like not feeling that way internally. Like when I'm saying whatever I'm saying that comes off that way. That's really I'm gonna be thinking about that one.
You gotta trip on that.
I'm gonna be tripping on that for a while.
Take some acid. I don't know about the ketamine mix, but take some acid and be like,
think about it.
Zero in on this and fix it.
I like that.
Cool.
To
wrap this up, ketamine and acid, good combo, bad combo?
Not bad. I think not like the bomb either. But I don't think you're going to like do serious issues.
Right. Obviously, you want to make sure that you can handle yourself on both substances
anyways, yeah.
separately. Like make sure that you can have a good safe ketamine high and a good safe
For
acid high before ever combining.
And less is more. You ever like experimenting? Just less is more.
Yeah, we don't advise. Let me preface this. Let's go back. So to start this video off, I do not advise anyone combines anything. I am simply trying to come from a non-biased angle, as non-biased as I can personally be. And I'm very curious what types of experiences Lauren has had and why she has not favored this combo. But I want to make it crystal clear that neither of us are advising anybody does anything. This is simply for the sake of education, and I want to help you guys learn how to be more safe and, uncover some of the dangers attached with some of these very common drug combinations that people do administer. Largely because there are certain combos that can kill you. And there are very common combos that do kill people all the time. If you watch my recent Q&A, I talked about that very briefly, but I covered the most dangerous drug combos. And if you want to learn about that, you can follow the video here. So on that same page, let's dive in and hopefully uncover some of the intricacies of the ketamine acid mix. And who better to ask than the girl who literally last night had an acid and ketamine combo. It's the morning after. So you're having like a real visual representation of what you look like after the fact. How's she look, guys?
We're a little rough.
Well, you look good for like no sleep, combining drugs, doing illegal dangerous things. You're looking good.
I'm alive. I'm here. I'm present. It's pretty good. I'm a little hungry.
Yeah, let's get some food.
Food.
Yeah. Anyway, let's jump right into this video. And now let's cut to the end. Anyway, if you guys all enjoyed this video, make sure you smash that like button. Just like smash it. Hit that thumbs up. Thumbs up for all of our awesome content lately. Thumbs up for Lauren. Let's hope that she continues feeling good for the rest of the day. You are feeling good, right?
Oh, I'm feeling pretty good.
That's not like bullshit.
No bullshit. I'm tired, but I'm like emotionally, mentally, I'm feeling pretty good.
She's like a rock over here. Nothing can break or shake her. Except maybe the slow erosion of water. Just that slow dribble will just eventually wear it down into a pebble.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens.
Yeah. But yeah, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Just to be clear, she's not like a druggie. Like she's an artist. And a lot of artists love to take these compounds for various myriad reasons that we don't have to get into.
You'll see when you see my art.
There you go. So yeah, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Over half of you guys watching aren't subscribed, and hit the gosh darn bell. When you hit the bell, it tells YouTube to stop shadow banning me.
Ding, ding.
Yeah, hit the ding, 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 ding. Love you guys. Shout out to our patrons. Buy my shit. I'm going to plug as much as possible, and peace out. Love you guys. How's this for energy? Better energy? Or do I just seem nasty now? I need a bigger smile when I do it. Bigger smile makes me seem faker. All right, cheers.
Cheers. Oh my goodness.
I think that was good too.
I think that was decent.
That was a good little interview of what the combo's like without me actually